no sign. one, Ms. Shatnow, but I assume she's coming. Oh, yeah.
We don't even have a chair for her. Is she coming? Oh,
Oh. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Committee on Ordinance for December 8th, 2015. Members present are myself, I'm the chair, Rebecca Lisi. And then in front of me, we have Counselor from Ward 7, Gordon Alexander, Counselor from Ward 3, David Bartley, Counselor from Ward 5, Linda Vacan. Jennifer Shatnoff, Counselor at Large, is usually a part of our committee, but she's not going to be able to make it this evening because she's taking care of a sick child. Does the, well, the first item on our agenda is the acceptance of the previous meeting minutes. Has anyone had a chance to look them over?
yes, we got them on email.
Yeah, we have an email.
Yeah. I haven't had a
I'll
chance
make
to
a
look at them.
motion to accept.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept and approve the previous meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And then the second item on our agenda is a zone change application from Mr. Dennis Croto for a zone change at 79 and 83 Lower Westfield Road from BL to BG or IG.
Take up the table.
I'm sorry?
Motion to take off the table.
Motion to take it up off the table. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. This is actually a public hearing that's being continued, so we need to open the public
Motion to
hearing.
open the public hearing. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We are also joined by the planning board this evening. The planning board, while they meet with us on a number of these zoning-related items, we are not meeting as a joint committee. They're going to be making their own decisions on the matters before us this evening. And they are also in continuation of this public hearing. So you guys need to open up open the meeting to continue it.
Can I, is there a motion to open the public hearing to continue the public hearing? All in favor? Aye.
Marcos, would you mind passing over the microphone to your right to the table in front of you so that we have some voice amplification down there? Perhaps one more. Thank you. Okay, so the applicant, Mr. Dennis Croto, was here last, let's see, September 8th. And we heard a lot of talk about the potential for a high-end boutique hotel that was in the works, although nothing was guaranteed in terms of a contract of any sort. We heard from the neighbors, and they had a lot of concerns about the way that the application was written, because it says from BL to BG or IG. And so the lack of clarity was a complaint by the neighbors at that time. And so there was a request that the petition be amended. The only thing that I have in front of me is the original petition. I'm not sure if the applicants had submitted anything else to give us greater clarity, or if they want to go in a different direction altogether. But I do see the applicant here. So if you do want to address us and some of your project and ideas, please come to the microphone and just state your name and address for the microphone.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming tonight. Sorry to have everybody come during the holidays like this. My cousin John's going to speak tonight because I just had oral surgery at 3:30, so he's going to explain the situation to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cordo, I know that you just came to the microphone and we have it on the paper, but we do need your name and
Dennis Croto,
address.
32 Concord Avenue, Holyoke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And John, when you come to the microphone, we'll need your name and address as well.
John Radner at 18 Forest Ridge Lane in Agawam. Things have progressed still to the betterment for us so far. We actually have a second group interested in the property now that we've come before the board. So we were surprised when we got here last time that there's so much activity going on about the generic zone change in the area. And we kind of talked about a little bit that maybe we would tell our potential buyers that maybe as an individual effort, we better hold off a little bit to see if the zoning gets changed to this new new type of zoning, that maybe we would wait till the zoning got cleared up there a little bit, may make it easier for us or make it more difficult, I'm not sure. Maybe, hopefully easier for us. So both parties agreed. We did some more work with both of them, and both interested very, very much in this piece of property to develop it. And they have the funds, and they have all that kind of stuff ready to go, and there are multiple property owners in the area. So it's not like coming from out of town. They know what's going on over here. So we kind of like didn't ask them to show up tonight because we thought we'd wait to get the newer ideas what's happening. I talked to a few people downtown today, this week, and they said you're progressing slowly but surely along the new zoning guidelines, and that may make it easier for us, or may not be, obviously. And but we do have some good news for ourselves. We get more interest than ever on the property, thank God. And,
So I guess the question that I would have for you this evening is, this application that's currently before us would only allow us to consider a zone change to BG or IG, and as the neighbors requested, and we were also interested in gaining clarification by limiting it to one or the other.
We'll change that if after you get the zoning change. I'll change the paperwork any day for the next meeting if you want, but I just thought we'd wait till the to the meetings that were currently in process going through. We would have to change that to the new zoning. The SC would comply to what we need to have done out there nicely, and we can't ask for that SC because it's nothing there yet. So I might have to change that proposal to SC proposal if it does come up there.
Sure, I guess one of the question that I was leading to ask was, do you want us to keep this open as a possibility?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so then what we need to do at this point is simply table it and.
Right. Is it premature, like I said, to ask and make a new newspaper ad up or ask for a change of zoning when there's going to be a whole new zoning coming up that's more suited for what we need done, right? That's what I'm speculating after spending listening an hour and a half here on that last meeting I went to, that maybe asking for that zone won't be necessary. I had to change it to a different zoning.
I just don't have the zoning regulations in front of me, but perhaps one of the other planning board members with the zoning book in front of you.
Got a copy with me if you need it.
Are hotels allowed in SC district currently? Because we do have an SC district, but we are making amendments to that district, and that may or may not.
That never came up,
pass.
I don't think, in our conversations to even ask for SC before. That's why downtown it was the other.
Jeff, is a hotel currently allowed in the SC district?
It would be?
Current version, yes.
So tonight, I think we need to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to keep this application open and continue it, or if you want to close it and just start on the other track. Because the SC district does currently exist. It's just a matter of which amendments, if any, we make
The
to it.
word amend it sound better than cancel it and start over? Is that what you're saying? So I say.
You can't amend this application.
Okay, so we gotta start, okay. So I'll go along with that. When the zoning committee gets together for the zone changes up there, then like the next day or two, I can come right in and make the paperwork up to change that to that, if that's, or should I start and put a petition together now? I'm not sure what the recommendation might be.
So I guess what I hear you saying is you're not willing to do anything different until we pass something one way or another, and that's fine.
Yep.
It just means that we're really not going to make much progress on this application this evening because things are still up in the air on your end, and you're looking to us for some more concrete.
I was asked to start, on my end, I was asked to start for plot plans to add to what you would give it to you, as well as our potential customer would like to have a plot plan made up so he can start presenting it to his crew. And so far, I said I was delaying all that till we got some idea what the zoning committee might say. But now I guess I can move that forward.
So it looks like Counselor Alexander, and I think Ms. Regan, did you want to speak as well? Yep, so in queue, Counselor Alexander.
Thanks for coming down. So I think we're tangling up 2 different issues here, 3 different issues.
Okay.
One is you've got a petition in front of us to rezone the property to either BG or IG?
Yep.
Is that correct? BG or IG. That petition in its current form is not something we can act on. It needs to be a petition to change it to some specific thing.
Right.
So you can go ahead and change that at any time. It doesn't matter.
Okay?
Secondly, if you want to consider the SC district, then you would ask to withdraw this petition without prejudice, which means you can resubmit it at any time.
Yep.
And then you would submit a new petition for SC. Now, let me finish.
Go ahead.
The SC district is in the middle of some modifications, so you might want to leave this one tabled until you know what SC looks like, although it sounds like, from the brief discussion that was just had, SC today allows a hotel. SC in the future is intended to allow a hotel, but those changes haven't been carved in stone yet, so it's possible that could change.
I never put on nobody in the appropriate parties recommended asking for SC before, so this.
Because it was a weird zone, but the intent in the room is to make it a somewhat more conventional zone, and
Correct.
so it may be more appropriate for you. So anyway, that's issue 1 is,
So you
issue
think I
1A and
should
B. Do you want to?
Cancel
I don't
or
know if you want to
table it?
cancel this yet or not. You may want to wait to see what SC looks like, leave this one tabled here, it can just sit for a little
Sounds
while.
perfect, tabled, right word, yes.
Then, as a totally separate issue, which has nothing to do with zoning, I'm going to say that 3 times, it has nothing to do with zoning, third time, it has nothing to do with the zoning, is what is the project you're proposing there, okay? Zoning is blind to the specific project because that project could go away and a different project that conforms to the zoning could come in and it would be legal under whatever the zoning is. So plot plans, all those kinds of issues are not something that can be considered during the discussion of a zone change. Okay? It's about the whole list of possible uses in the zone that you're proposing versus the whole list of possible uses in the zone that you have today.
Okay.
All right? Once you get that zone change, and you should apply for the zone that most graciously admits to your the broadest range of your desires. Once that zone change is in place, then planning is going to get very active in looking at plot plans and making sure that what you're proposing conforms to the zone you have. But the 2 things are completely and utterly separate, even though that seems a little weird. Okay? And it's simply because projects can go away and zoning allows things by right. So once you've got a zone, you're not required to keep that project in place. You could come in with anything else that's allowed in that zone. So the discussion of what zone has nothing to do with the discussion of a specific project at the moment.
My thoughts were to try to have a signed, sealed contract with a potential customer, then give it to you people to see.
It's not relevant. It's simply not relevant, even though it sounds like maybe it should be.
It's not
Certainly
relevant
wasn't
to
given
our
the project.
decision for the zone change. However, I think that many of the residents neighboring the property had made the request to at least understand what the project that you were soliciting would be. So that wouldn't have any bearing on our decision per se, but the neighbors felt that this was the forum in which they could hear the plans that you had.
I think I got an idea listening to what was happening with Gary Rome. I thought other people had come through in the years and asked for zone changes, and then his lawyer supplied a specific game plan for him and a specific plan for him, and that was a good influence for the city to complement his ideas about having a zone change. And without that, you weren't going to do anything for a zone change unless you had a firm offer on paper to show you.
No, but again, it is the public forum in which the neighboring properties get to hear about the
Right, okay.
potential project.
Okay.
Ms. Regan, you did have your hand up.
Well, Counselor Alexander did address a couple of the things that I wanted to say, which is that, you know, the SC district does, it is currently a district, but we are in the process of modifying it, and it is potentially going to be able to be expanded in the city. No guarantees yet, but, because we haven't finished. But I want to be sure that you understand when we say we vote a zone change based on the property, not on the project, that, you know, you could come in with a boutique hotel and we rezone the property, and then, you know, let's say, I don't know, a cement mix, you know, a cement factory is allowed in that zone. And the man who wants to build a cement factory offers you more money for the property, and then we end up with a cement factory and not a boutique hotel because it was allowed by right. So I just wanted to be sure that, so that's why we don't vote, we don't vote a zone change based on the project. Although it may have seemed that way with Gary Rome, it wasn't actually the case. It was that the zone that allowed that to happen there, we felt was appropriate for that piece of property.
It influenced you a little bit.
Well, I mean, I'd be a liar if I said it didn't influence some, but technically, it's not supposed to.
Right, but Dennis assured, I'm not sure if you were here for the other meeting, Dennis assured you that we would not do anything to jeopardize the neighborhood. He's been
I
operating
understand
for
that.
years and so forth, so we're
But,
not trying to.
we really have to, you know, be careful what we do, in terms of, looking at the project specifically, because,
From our viewpoint, the building would be attractive enough to match the area. You got the big condominium project behind us, it won't stick out against them too much, but it's gonna have least amount of traffic. It's gonna have a good income for the city because the square footage is packed with goodies per square foot, so you're gonna have a nice tax package without a lot of accessory problems happening because of it. You know, plowing won't be affected too much. No school system's gonna be affected by it. Nothing for extra crossing guards or other things like, nothing's gonna happen major from 60, 70 cars in the morning and 60, 70
And
cars at
all
night.
these issues that you're bringing up would be vetted in site plan review, so that's not this is not the forum for vetting those types of issues. I do have in queue Counselor Bacon and then Ms. Panich.
Thank you. Since it looks like you're going to leave this on the table, I just want to bring up in terms of if you are moving forward and amending what your intent would be for BG or IG. The other point that was brought up was that you're actually requesting 2 zone changes because you're requesting to change one plot of land that is RA to a business zone and another that is a business zone to a different business zone. So this proposal would need to be amended to reflect what specifically for each one you're
Okay, so
seeking.
should I change the proposal like this week and make a new proposal up and list both properties individually?
If-
That they are first, and then put it in, or should I wait till?
In my view, if you want to pursue this, you need to make it clear what you want, and you need to make it equally clear.
I understood that from the
what
last
each
meeting.
one
Exactly.
is,
But
to
I
have it
didn't-
in proper form.
Okay, so maybe I should just change the proposal to add the heading for the residential on one of them, was missing on that, and then put that back in, and then we'll have another meeting to,
Yeah, and actually, if we can suspend the necessary rules and allow Kara to address this item, like if we can.
Motion to suspend.
Thank you. Is
And
there a
I,
second?
and I would just like to finish on my comments. Thank you. And to your earlier comment, did the fact that there was a signed purchase and sale agreement contingent upon the zone change for the Gary Rome
Yes.
project? Absolutely, it influenced the decision. Thank you.
So the motion has been made to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Kara, would you mind approaching and letting us know if the current application and the way it's written can be amended to clarify what the zone changes being sought are, or if this should be scrapped altogether for a new petition that outlines the 2 different zone changes that are being sought for the 2 different properties? Do you want me to run through it one more
Yeah,
time?
can you just read? I
So
don't
we
have,
have,
I'm
we have
just wondering if Marcos or Jeff has each of the
79 and 83 Lower Westfield Road. One is BL, one is RA.
Okay.
That's not clarified on the application here. What it says is 79 and 83, and it says from BL to BG or IG.
Right. I don't really know that that makes any difference. I think what is important is what was advertised, and what was advertised is what the proposed zone, and as I recall, it was gonna be, I think both of them were listed in the advertisement
Yep.
because I wasn't aware of anything that prevented them from doing that, so I mean, for clarity, certainly the application could be amended, but I don't think there's any legal impact from that.
And can we amend it with public comment so that we have clarity for the record and we can move forward, saying that we're looking at BL to BG or BL to IG? In the same way, we're looking at RA to either BG or IG?
I guess that's fine. I mean, it's not, perhaps the petitioner could just submit a letter clarifying what it is.
So,
What did the ad say?
I don't have it in front of me. It should be with the,
We have an application to turn one property into two zones, and what we need is an application for two properties into one zone.
Correct. Correct.
And I'm gonna ask one more question. Recently, the abutter property came up for sale, which is definitely residential. And the tenants, our potential customers, are interested in that. So I might have to ask to add the next door property to the petition at some point in time also, or another petition separate, because it's a different landlord right now. So if I get the paperwork together, I'm gonna have to ask for a third parcel.
is that your property?
No, not
You
yet.
can't apply for a zone change for a
Oh,
property that's
what
not
I'm
yours.
saying. Right, so it's gotta
well, no,
We gotta-
you
we-
can if the owner signs off on it.
be, right, so if I,
And so the ad said, from BL to BG or IG.
So that isn't what it is.
Right, I mean, again, I would say I don't really think that makes a difference. I mean, what's really important is for people to be on notice of what's being proposed there. I don't really think there's an issue with the fact that it doesn't list that second zone. I mean, I guess, I just wanna make sure that,
I'll put another paperwork together, doesn't bother me.
well, I just wanna make sure you understand that I've heard a lot of talk about submitting new proposals, and every time you do that, there's an application fee, and it has to be advertised in the newspaper, and so I just wanted to make you clear that all this discussion of new proposals, the important thing in this zoning context really is notice of everyone, so all these changes,
Would have to
you know,
be
need to be
notified.
new applications and need to be advertised and abutters notified for everything, so.
If I may, through the chair.
Sure.
So are you saying that when we give notice on zone changes, it is not important for the abutters to know what the current zoning that is asking to be changed is?
I would have to honestly look at the statute and see if that's even required to be in the ad. The statute sets out what it has to be. I'm happy to look
I
at
think
that
it would
right
be
now.
important for us to understand that.
Sure, I can take a look at it and
Thank you.
see.
If I may?
We do have Ms. Panich in queue. You're all set? Okay.
I was just going to say, given the amount of uncertainty, there's a third property, there are two properties already involved, there are two zones, you at some point need to settle on one or the other, but there's also another zone that may or may not come into play. If I can ask Kara a quick question. Kara, I know there's some kind of timeline within which we need to act on a petition that's in front of us. Do you know what the drop dead date is on this petition?
Double check that too.
That timeline notwithstanding, assuming that's not going to get in the way of anything, it sounds like the best thing for you to do, this is a suggestion, but take it for what it's worth, is to just leave everything tabled until the dust settles a little bit, until you know what's going on with the third property, until there's a little bit more clarity on what SC is going to look like. So you're picking from your correct list of options, basically. if in the interim, this one needs to be acted upon, which means we would either need to approve it, which it sounds like doesn't make a lot of sense, or deny it, then the best thing for you to do is to withdraw it, okay? So that it's not on the table forcing us to act on something that's not necessarily even what you want. So I would say, you know, let's leave it tabled until that deadline approaches, and then if the SC issue is not resolved yet, then just withdraw this one and reapply when you're ready. I think Carol will have an answer for that
In
momentarily.
a moment. In the meantime, I think what you want to do is submit a letter to the clerk's office clarifying which of the two districts this application is looking to pursue, so BG or IG.
Or now,
No,
Don't even bother with that, just leave it, wait until see what SC looks like.
Go for SC if you wanted to. SC exists.
out of it totally.
that's a new, that's going to be a new and separate application altogether.
I'll go with the one that had the,
That would be a change. That'd be a new.
This one
To
you can amend just
clarify.
to clarify 2 properties, 1 zone, as opposed to 1 property and 2 zones.
To one zone, right?
first one, it doesn't say it properly.
Kara, do you have a response for us regarding the timeline?
So, well, first of all, so the timeline is you have to make a decision within 90 days after the hearing. So you could continue the hearing, but just to be clear, as you know, you can't table it, you have to continue it to a date certain. And then as far as the notice issue for, you know, a zoning amendment, the, notice has to have time and place of the public hearing of the subject matter sufficient for identification and place where text and maps may be inspected. So there's no requirement that, you know, no explicit requirement that the current zoning be listed. Obviously, that helps in what the subject matter is, but the more important fact would be what's proposed to be changed to. So I don't think there's an issue with the way this was noticed.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion, we continue this until, I defer to you for a calendar sometime in January.
We are already booked on January 12th, so it would be the first meeting in February. I'm getting it.
Obviously, the clerk will know, is she supposed to re-advertise the
Nope.
clarification?
Nope,
Not required, just to be.
it's just going to be made as an attachment to your original application.
Correct. Only if you choose to withdraw this and go for SC because you like something better in the SC that finally comes out of the sausage factory, then you would need to re-advertise because you're talking about a completely different zone.
So we're looking at February 9th. So the motion has been made to continue this public hearing until February 9th at 6:30 PM. Is there a second? Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
No snow date, right?
Yeah,
You make a motion as well?
yes.
Tell the mayor not to close it.
Hear a motion to continue?
Hearing until February 9th at 6:30.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. We'll see you on February 9th.
Happy holidays. Motion to take up item number 3?
We can take up 3 and 4 as a package.
Motion to take up 3 and 4 as a package.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to take up items number 3 and 4 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Items 3 and 4 relate to making dimensional changes to the BH zone, which is table 5.2 of the zoning ordinance, and it's 3 and 4, not 4 and 5. 3 and 4, 4 is at the city council review, the BG, BH, SC, and IG zoning ordinances to be consolidated or reformulated. And we have not made progress on either of these 2 orders since we met last. I think we're kind of waiting to see what pans out of the SC district conversation. So these would be, it would be right to just continue these, unless anyone has any comments to make about either of them.
Are these
Second.
public hearings?
They are public hearings.
We need to open to continue.
Yeah, I guess so.
Motion to open the public hearing on 3 and 4.
Motion has been made and seconded to open the public hearing on 3 and 4. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Motion to continue till February 9th at 6:30.
We should, since they are on the agenda and there are members of the public here, just
sorry.
ensure that there's nobody interested in making comment on these before we continue the meeting. So I think the planning board should open up their meeting.
Open up the public hearing for items 2 and 3 on our agenda, the zone change petition continuation for table 5.2, table of dimension regulations, change BH zone, and zone change petition continuation for the review of the BAG, BH, SC, and IG zones to consolidate or reformulate.
So moved. All in,
All in favor?
aye.
Okay, so the City Council's Ordinance Committee is under the impression that we're going to continue these items. However, if there's anyone from the public who'd like to comment on either items 3 or 4 related to the BH zone or the consolidation reformulation of BH, SC, IG, and BG. Given that there are none, we can continue this meeting to February 9th at 6:30 as well.
You have to vote it, just, right, all in
There's a
favor?
motion on the
Aye.
Oh, we need to postpone.
We have a motion.
No, let's
Continue.
continue. There's a motion on the table there.
What we motion to do is open the public hearing and allow the members of the public to speak.
Motion to continue, February 9th, 6:30.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to continue the public hearing until February 9th at 6:30 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Motion to continue the hearing of the planning board until February 9th at 6:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. And then finally, we have one more item related to, we have 6 and 7.
Are you
Six,
wanting to skip 5 for the moment?
well, 6 and 7 relate to the SC zone. Did you guys deal with SC zone this evening? We had closed both the public hearings related to SC zone, and we're waiting for a recommendation back from planning. So I didn't know if you guys had dealt with it or not yet.
We did tonight vote to recommend a text of a revised ordinance to you all. I had hoped to have a written report to accompany it. I am quite apologetic about not having produced that yet. I hope to get it to you in the next few days. But, we've discussed it extensively, and I don't think the changes are terribly different from the drafts you all have already seen.
So what Sharon is passing out currently is the draft that was approved this evening.
Thank you. So we actually haven't taken these up off the table, but since you have a draft, would the ordinance committee be interested in hearing the planning board, since the planning board is not usually with us?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear what their recommendations are? Okay. So then, a motion then is in order to take up 6 and 7 off the table. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Items 6 and 7 relate to allowing for certain additional business types in the SC zone, and 7 is that the shopping center zoning code be expanded into large-scale districts, including but not limited to Kmart Plaza and South Street Plaza. So again, we've closed the public hearing. Both the planning board and the City Council's Ordinance Committee has closed the public hearing on the SC district. It seems that the planning board met this evening and made some recommendations. We usually get those recommendations sent to us in a letter, but I think we're going to take advantage of the fact that they're all here and hear out of the horse's mouth some of the rationale or justifications for their changes.
Madam Chair. Just as a point of order, I think we can hear their rationale tonight, but I would ask that the committee not act on it until we have the written report.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. So is there anyone who wants to take the lead on walking us through what you presented tonight? The actual staff, the planning staff. You might as well if you want to talk, right?
Purposes of discussion, yeah, you guys should reopen.
Motion to reopen a public hearing? A planning board
That's
meeting?
the planning board
Okay.
meeting.
For the 8th of December, 2015.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so what you have before you, if I may, or do you wish, okay. For what you have before you is, taking it through, there should be 5 separate documents. Everything you see in red are things that have been added to or revised from what the current ordinance reads. What you should have in front of you first is section 2 definitions. We further proposed definitions for retail establishment, basically adding the last line, the term shall also include eating and drinking establishments, personal services, and entertainment. We're also adding a definition called shopping center, one or more retail or other commercial establishments, including those located on out parcels. A further definition, passenger motor vehicle, which would be a Class 1 vehicle as defined by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. And beneath that, you can see in black, I added the current definitions, just that a passenger, or Class 1 is a 2-axle passenger vehicle, a passenger car, light truck, or van, or motorcycle with or without sidecar. And just for your information, an out parcel is a individual retail site located within a shopping center, could be leased or could be a separate parcel unto itself.
Would that be like Macy's?
No, they're on their own parcel. I don't know if you'd consider it an out parcel. I'm thinking more in terms of if you had a full plot,
Be like
if the mall
D'Angelo's
wished
at
to,
Kmart.
I'm sorry?
Be like the D'Angelo's at Kmart, or
Sure, right, exactly. Or,
Out parcel.
right, another business, right, correct, thank you. Then, if no one has any comments to that, moving on to table 5.2, which I believe should be your second page. Basically, looking at the current sites within the proposed district, as well as looking at other zones, those were the numbers that we came up with that made the most sense for dimensional controls. I mean, currently, as it stands right now, the SC doesn't have any dimensional controls. And so this kind of helps, set the tone for what the parcel should be, frontage, rear yard, obviously, the setbacks, the heights, the coverage.
Thanks.
Okay. Then moving along, onto the section 646, signage, signs in business industrial districts, we added another line to the bottom of the size limitations chart, which adds a double asterisk for those sites greater than 25,000 square feet in an SC zone. By right, they can go to 200 square feet or up to 400 square feet with a special permit of the planning board.
so the
Say that again?
the double asterisk on BH already exists.
Correct, that was for BH, but for the SC down the bottom, it's just calling out that anything greater than 25,000 in a SC zone is allowed the 200, but up to 400
By special permit.
by special permit, correct. Moving on to the main body of the document, section 8.3, under 8.3.1, the first bullet point is pretty much just adding all of those uses that previously weren't there. And in the case of the red, it was changing those that were formerly done by the city council to those that are added to changed to the planning board for their approval. Obviously, they're in front of you. I can either go through them or you can obviously read them. And I guess moving along, under 8.3.2, I don't know if you necessarily want me to go through this line by line, but I can tell you the highlights of what you see
Yeah,
here.
the highlights are definitely where we're at tonight.
For the record, I think it would be good if you do read in the changes.
Okay.
For the public record.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, starting at 8.3.2.
I mean, for the changes of use.
So
Okay.
starting at 8.3.1.
Okay, so with that, it would be adding veterinary clinic, which is number 4, number 7, hotel. Oh, wait.
No, these are existing.
Oh, those are existing, I'm sorry, it's, yeah. 13A, passenger motor vehicle rental. 14, motor vehicle body auto repair and paint shop. Number 15, motor vehicle service station. Number 16, motor vehicle service station with fast food and/or convenience goods. Number 17, motor vehicle repair garage. Number 20, restaurant, fast food, or drive-in. Number 25, any commercial drive-through use. And number 33, commercial parking lot or garage. So moving on to,
Do you want to run through the whole thing, or do you want to, like, address section by
it's
section?
up to you.
What's,
It's up to,
I think the highlights are where we're at tonight, because we're going to get a formal letter with a recommendation from you. So if you can go through the highlights and maybe talk a little bit about what you were thinking, or like what went into some of those highlights, that would be great.
but are we at this point still reading it in the whole thing for the record?
No, just the highlights.
Okay. So with that, under 8321, for shopping centers, there shall be no buildings, parking surfaces, or other improvements above ground improvements within 25 feet of public right-of-way. Structure shall be no less than 50 feet from the public right-of-way. In the case of the setbacks, on any side, setbacks may be reduced upon the issuance of a special permit by the planning board if the side abuts a commercial or industrial zoned land and additionally satisfies any of the following criteria. Reduction to no less than 10 feet provided heavy landscaping and/or features are located so as to reduce the visual impact of the parking lot from the abutting public street. B, reduction to no less than 10 feet if low-impact development technologies are incorporated into the stormwater system design and the area of reduction is to be used for such practices. And C, reduction to 0 feet in cases where the abutting parcel is zoned SC and other uses share a common wall.
I want to pause you just for a second, and I think Councilor Vacon does too. But just going back to 831 for a brief second, just the logic behind incorporating a bunch of auto-related uses into that table? I'm sure there's a reason, and they're clearly.
I think at that point it was
There's
just
clearly
to-
a good cluster of them there, so I'm wondering what the thought process was.
Take that
Okay.
through your notes. Mr. Kelly is not with us tonight, but he made the point several times as we discussed what this zone might look like, and the fact that we have new hotels already going into the old Holyoke Hotel site, that one of the things that might very well happen if development continues along these paths is that we'll have people staying in those hotels who, for instance, want to rent passenger cars. And it would be a logical add-on usage to have, not heavy truck rentals, obviously, but to have kind of satellite offices offering passenger vehicles, maybe light repair. But that was the sort of thing that he had in mind, and it was those considerations that made us think, okay, this batch of uses is in fact a good fit. And there already are some motor vehicle uses up there, as I understand it. We obviously don't want to displace anything that's already there. Anything I didn't cover?
Yeah, that's pretty much in line. We've got existing gas stations out there. We have auto repair centers out there. It was just to further make this site all-inclusive for a lot of the commercial uses.
So we only have one SC zoned parcel in the city. So when you're referring to the activities that are up there, what zoning are you referring to now?
I guess I don't understand. Right now that we're redrafting the SC zone.
I understand that, but what are the areas that are currently doing these activities currently zoned as?
In the case of one of the gas stations, it's zoned industrial general. In the case of the auto repair center, it is zoned, is it BG? It'd be the, Sears Auto Center.
If I may, that is to review the BG, BH, SC, and IG zones to consolidate or reformulate all of them together.
Well, right, but what I'm trying to understand is once we get through this document, I'm trying to understand what the distinction between any of them will be. So I want to understand when they're making general statements that this already happens there.
Under, not
context
necessarily
is,
under
that's
SC,
all.
but
I
definitely
understand
under
that. I
BH.
want to know
Okay,
what exists, and then if this is created, what difference it's going to make. So that's why I'm asking my question.
Right, so you currently have a gas station in the IG district, and you've got an auto center, repair center in a BG district.
Okay, thank you.
So we considered all of them and, you know, presuming that we were going to incorporate, we tried to be sure that nothing that's already existing would be, you know, left out.
In order to make it palatable for the consolidation, the future consolidation, while we're only working on the SC district, it sounds like you guys were mindful of the 4 other related business districts so that it becomes palatable for these other districts to undergo a zone change,
Correct.
creating one large contiguous zone in that area. So you work to incorporate the multiple uses that are present in all the business-related districts.
That was what we were charged to do, I thought, yes.
And that makes some sense to me, and I'm supportive of that. I guess I'm a little unclear if what this in essence is doing, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just trying to understand it a little more clearly. If in essence this is taking all of the uses that are allowed in, say, BG and allowing them in SC, are we thinking down the road of eliminating BG? I mean,
That's
why,
what the order
why
that
would
we
we
just
have 2
tabled.
zones? I understand how it applies to the district up by the mall. I mean, I get that part. But there are BG properties all over the city. There are IG properties all over the city. Are we suggesting that the SC zone would then absorb those properties as well over time?
Nope,
Not
it's
necessarily.
It's to further distinguish those
Okay, and so
properties.
to Councilor Vacon's question, what at the end of the day, what will be the, without going line by line by line through the uses, what will be the functional difference between, say, BG and SC if this were adopted wholesale? Or are we ending up with 2 zones that are so similar that it's
Well, I think
pointless to have 2 zones
Business General though picks up a lot of other smaller,
that are not allowed in SC?
well, that may be, but are also, there's other, remember, there's a dimensional table there too that's allowing business into smaller areas, not so much the larger shopping center, say, districts. So when you think of BL, BG, they may not, it's not gonna be as large of a developable project. It's gonna be, you know, trying to think, the small realtor business, the nail salon, you know, it's other smaller businesses, not a regional shopping center.
I think
So those zones still may,
Marcos wanted
those
to
zones still may remain.
Make a comment.
I think there's an impression that we took, when we're talking about changing the districts, there's the districts as they are on paper, and then there's the physical nature of the district when you stand basically at the intersection of Lower Westfield and Holyoke Street, and you go down to the mall. What is large commercial plazas? And so we're looking for patterns of use that are very similar in that area, and we're looking for the uses that make sense to be in an SC. Now, the auto-related uses, for example, we have Sears Auto there. That is in the BG district. On paper, it is the BG district, but it's in the character of what we're trying to define as the new SC zone, right? So I think there's some confusion produced by the use of district in different ways, but I don't want to leave you with the impression that our exercise was, all right, let's take everything in BG, just put it in there, because then that would precipitate the question, what is the difference? No, the exercise was, how can we characterize a district that the uses are associated with auto commuting off the highway, it's large commercial enterprises, and other uses related to entertainment and hospitality.
So, okay, I'm going to ask my question again because I'm still not getting it. Other than putting, this SC district will be largely targeted towards larger projects, larger businesses, larger footprint operations. I
Yes.
get that. And BG, I'm just picking on BG or IG, whatever, but I'm picking on BG at the moment, will be available for smaller scale projects. I get that. But other than the fact that you can't put a 50,000 square foot building on a 20,000 square foot lot, and therefore we need a zone that says you can do that project on a smaller lot, if we've allowed all the same uses in both, except that you can't put a big building on a little property, what's the difference? What's the, you know, as you say, when you stand at that four-way and you look around, if after 50 years of being zoned SC, 20 years, 50 is too long, it's gonna look like X, whatever that is. And after 20 years of being zoned BG, it's going to look different. That's why we have 2 zones, because we expect a different outcome. What would be the bulk difference, not the, we don't allow nail salons here, but what would be the bulk difference between the two zones?
I don't think I share the same assumption underlying the question, that the only difference is a very small one in terms of space. There are several differences between both of them, but
Good, tell me what they are, that's what I want to know.
Well, I don't have the whole list of it in front of us because we weren't here to discuss like what is everything that the BG can do. We've done that over several public hearings, but the purpose of having a unique, a unifying zone is because it's going to treat that real estate market in the same way. So if we want to have similar type projects, larger projects, and allow them to happen, then it's creating a homogeneous district where developers can lease or buy land that is right next to them and follow the same rules. Or take advantage of a development that's right next to them and do something that complements them.
I'm going to try one last time.
Well, I could actually answer
How would the
your.
outcome here be different than if we just rezoned the whole thing BG? Why are we changing a zone as opposed to just rezoning?
Because
as
there
a
are
chair,
certain
I wanna-
uses allowed in a BG that you can't, like, for instance, you can do an arcade in an SC, but you can't do an arcade in a BG.
But I'm going to just interrupt you
Well,
for
there
a
are
moment,
certain
Jeff.
uses.
Jeff, because really the answer to your question, Gordon, is in item number 4 on our agenda tonight, which we continued. It's looking at the 4 different districts and trying to distinguish the districts. Once we create one that is going to be the large scale development and encompassing the 4 different uses that are right next to one another in that area of the Whiting Farms corridor. The idea is to create something that's going to envelop everything there in terms of this larger scale type of commercial future projection for that area. And then once we get something on the books written into text about what the SC is going to definitively look like in the future is how we can start then modifying IG, BG, and BH to be more distinguished and distinct from the SC district.
Okay, fair enough.
And if you want, we can go through the use chart and we can go down right now and we can go in a BG, you can do this, in an SC you can't, or vice versa. We can use that as an example if you want to go through the whole table 4.3.
No, I can do that on my own. Or is that one attached to the entry? There is. I can do that on my own.
Okay, just want to make sure. I can, and then,
I've looked at that table before. As you know.
okay.
But I
And then-
think that it would just be like, it would be too unwieldy to tackle all 4 at the same time without knowing where the larger marker is. And ostensibly, the idea is to create something homogeneous in that Whiting's farm corridor. And so it's trying to make some sort of singular zone that's going to be palatable to all the businesses that are there, that makes sense to be there in the future. And then from there, going into the other districts and, pulling them away from one another once we have the anchor, which would be the SC district in terms of what the zoning regulations include or do not include. Counselor Bacon.
Thank you. I hear the case that you are making for this whole discussion and this whole project, but I'm going to restate what I said probably in every public hearing that we had. There is a predominant zone in the area. It's business. It's either IG or BG. There's only one parcel in the entire city zoned SC. So why would we be driving a consolidation with one specially zoned plot for one company? Why would we not be driving it by the bulk of the business that exists in the district? And I just feel like we have the cart before the horse on this, and it's been my objection all along. Because if that SC owner wants to do business that's in BG, for example, all they have to do is come in for a zone change from SC to BG. Because it looks like we're putting all these business things into SC. And particularly most of it's drive-throughs and motor vehicle. And I'm thinking, well, that's gonna be a real enhancement in the neighborhood, not?
Well, I think that the reason why we're looking at the SC district is because of I guess, the talk that Marcos gave earlier on in this process about the changing nature of retail and the fact that large box development, something similar to what we see at the Barnes and Noble shopping center, is becoming outdated and antiquated, and we want to think about how to fill those types of spaces. And even like the new businesses that are opening up related to like Applebee's, and I don't know exactly what else is going in at that Holyoke Hotel corridor, but that's that was a big commercial. What do I want to say? There were multiple commercial businesses there. They were working on a different playing field than the other businesses in the area. So we're trying to create something that's going to put all the different type of business activities on a level playing field.
If I may.
Ms. Panich.
I think, to a certain extent, the answer to the question that I think you're asking, and I apologize if I am not understanding it correctly, is that we're talking about SC essentially by historical accident. We could have been talking about BG, and we would be making the same kinds of suggestions about it. What we tried to do with this is do a sort of good parts version, figure out what various business interests have been asking for that we are not giving them in all of the major zones up there, try to harmonize them so that in the end we wind up with a kind of zoning that will be attractive to all of the businesses, that gives them all something that perhaps is commercially useful to them that they don't currently have, and then think about not just giving it to the one parcel that happens to be SC, but extending it to the BGs and IGs, because if we've done our jobs right, they'll want to be part of this. And for instance, one of the things in this draft that hasn't been touched on yet is that I think a lot of the business people that Marcos has spoken to have been very interested in being able to use some of their space for instance, outpatient medical use, because retail is slowing down. And if the mall wants to do that, if the Holyoke Crossing people want to do that, if they all want to be able to have somewhat bigger signs for their giant tenants than they currently can have, this should be a solution that makes all of their lives easier and makes it easier for businesses coming in to be able to say, all right, we know where we can go. We don't have to worry about whether we can get a zone change for our particular set of needs because it's already dealt with. But really, it is just by historical accident that we're talking about SC. It is not meant for just the one property.
I did have in queue Councilor Alexander, and then I'm not sure if Marcos, you were signaling that you wanted to speak again. Okay, so Councilor Alexander.
Thanks. I just wanted to say I am appreciative that whether it's purely an accident or not, that we started this process with the SC zone because it kind of contains the discussion a little bit. There is only one parcel whose current zoning will be impacted by any changes we make, and then we can invite other landowners, or eventually, maybe do something stronger than that, other landowners to participate in the revised SC, and create this district up there. If we were to start with, for instance, BG, and go down the exact same path, we might end up with the exact same result up by the mall, but we would also have impacted the BG properties all over the city as sort of an unintended consequence. So by starting with SC, we eliminate those unintended consequences, we focus on this one area, we deal with this issue, and then we can then look at, okay, this is what SC looks like now, maybe there is too much overlap with what BG had been because it had stretched to accommodate properties up by the mall. Now we can, sort of deflate that balloon a little bit and allow BC to go back to what it was intended to be, or what the view of the city is that it should be in the future. So I think this is a good path. Thank you.
So I have Marcos and then Ms. Reagan.
Well, Councilor Alexander just touched on one of the points I was going to make, but the other one is, and not to preclude the recommendation by the board, but if the council wishes to call this the retail center, the RC,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
it's irrelevant. Then it doesn't affect anyone until an order is filed changing all the properties, and then to that point, no property is affected until that's acted upon. This only gets us halfway there. If we're serious about creating a homogeneous zone that allows for the type of development that we're looking for, then either the planning board would have to send to the council, or someone would have to file in the council an order including specific properties where this would be affected. Then we could deal with the other zones if that's needed. But we've designed this in mind so that it's not just an invitation to someone, but that not only would property owners not have a significant opposition to this, but we understand that everyone would have something to gain by joining into this, or not opposing it once an order goes in.
Ms. Regan?
Yeah, I also want to sort of refresh our memories that when way back when we started this process, Pyramid came in and advocated for this change too, because of the changing
Limitations, for example.
yeah, and the changing sort of way people are doing business now. Everyone's buying online, and so that they could retrofit new, like Ms. Panish said, dialysis centers or things like that into a into a shopping area, or and they don't currently have SC. They currently have BG or IG or whatever it is they have. So it was not just the developers of the currently zoned SC. So I agree. Maybe we should call it RC.
Yeah, that's fine. Ms. Vagan.
If I may,
Councilor Vagan, sorry.
Thank you. I recall the manager for Pyramid coming in, and I also recall him being very surprised when he realized that if they changed to that zone, none of their other current operations would be grandfathered under that new zone. He was very surprised to learn that in the public hearing, that if they switched to that zone, their other activities and business, whatever, would not be grandfathered. He was visibly surprised by that when he was at the mic and that question was raised.
Well, that's simply incorrect. Any existing business would be grandfathered automatically.
But in terms of the use, it would not be. If the zone was changed, the current existing things would be grandfathered, but not the use.
There are no uses on that site that are non-compliant with this. So there's nothing to grandfather.
So and my point is, there were 2 businesses represented in all of the public hearings so far that spoke to this matter in the public hearings.
Okay. So I just want to take into consideration that when we get your recommendation, we may be looking to change the title to make it more palatable and perhaps more even-handed as we move forward.
Can I ask a point of order?
Sure.
Is it permissible, Kara, I don't know, maybe I'm asking you this question, for the planning board's recommendation to be that we create a new zone RC that would fulfill these criteria, so that we're not impacting the one property that currently is zoned SC by default? They can make that recommendation, and we could adopt that recommendation under the current order.
Are you helping us write our recommendation now?
No,
I mean,
I'm just
okay.
trying to figure out a way to not have the argument about,
Okay.
are we doing this for this one property?
Okay.
If we're doing it for no properties at all, it simplifies that. It takes that issue off the table, that's all.
And just, in fact, that is something that I had considered having in our formal recommendation anyway, because the more we talked about it, the more it seemed that we were not really addressing the one property so much as we were attempting to come up with, the correct kind of zoning rules for that district. So it was going to be an alternative in the draft anyway, unless I was overruled by the rest of the board and/or, substantive objections had been raised by the professional staff. And it doesn't sound like there are any, so in fact, that doesn't really change what would have come out.
At this point, I will say that the board voted on the paperwork that's before you this evening.
Yeah.
That's going to be written up into a communication that we'll receive,
Okay.
right? Isn't that how it goes? Like,
Well,
they
I mean,
voted?
well, I mean, in the past, under normal circumstances, in past circumstances too, recently, the board has given a verbal recommendation at that hearing. I mean, this is an extraordinary situation where we've got the whole planning board and planning staff beyond a hearing being closed and our meeting being arguably closed. So at this point, I wasn't sure if we, you know, I know that the planning board chairperson has offered to write an additional document, but on some level, based on what we've now said, I wasn't sure if we were still writing a formal letter from the planning board saying at this, you know, I know that the planning board chair was gonna write a further document, but I didn't know if it was actually like a letter-headed document that we were going to be providing like we would under other normal circumstances, because we're here now pretty much going through this line by line.
Well, perhaps this is a good time to ask the question whether, I mean, the way we usually do business, you know, we did vote basically to recommend this language to you all. We also voted to provide some written explanation of why we were recommending it. If it is permissible under general rules of procedure, I suppose we could go back and I can present a draft of an expanded recommendation to the planning board for our discussion and a vote on whether to forward that. I mean, if that is something that doesn't mess up.
You know, I just think that at the end of the day, it's been like the normal procedure to have a communication received.
Yeah, it's
And
always-
so,
But how is that communication gonna differ from what we're already here in person this evening saying?
so I wasn't actually finished speaking. I was going to say, if this, what you've presented with us tonight is the same as what you would have presented to us, except for the department's letterhead, then we can accept this as the communication. If they, you know, to Ms. Panet, your point, I thought that the point of us having you here this evening would to be exactly as I said earlier, to hear from the horse's mouth the explanations behind some of these text changes, as opposed to getting a written explanation. If your board and your rules allow you to continue to communicate an explanation to us, like, that would be helpful, since you probably will not be at our next meeting, where we could look at them side by side, and then deal with the nitty-gritty ordinance text changes that we deal with a reference document.
You know, my original thinking with this, honestly, was, you know, as you know, our practice is in fact to send you a written recommendation. It usually is very bare bones. It usually just says, you know, we recommend that you take such and such an action on, you know, such and such a petition or the document that we are sending along. What I was thinking of when I offered to write this was sort of an analogy to a judicial opinion, just explaining why we made the choices we made, so that you could look at them and see whether they made sense to you and have a starting place, you know, knowing what our thoughts were.
And if you're going to submit that letter, I would say, I don't think it's necessary to continue to go through this document at the level of detail that we've been doing.
Yeah, and I was hoping, in fact, that it would make your lives easier on that level and also possibly spare the staff some time.
Sure. So are there any immediate questions then for the planning staff that we can ask them and make use of their time here? Otherwise, I would say that continuing this meeting, I'm sorry, this is already closed, so we would just table this until we get the recommendation and explanation from the planning board. Marcos?
I just want to call attention to one general highlight. I think it's the most important change that was made in response to some of the comments that we heard, not just during the public hearings, but during our meetings, which was a 10% total gross square footage limitation. That's been maintained by right, but with a special permit provision of up to 50%, 45%, with a series of criteria that everyone's free to look at. Signage was modified, as we've seen in the table, but there's some language clarifying that as well. and some language clarifying the provisions around lighting to make sure that it's uniform throughout the district and not bothering abutters. But in general, the three highlights are the increased square footage, clarification in uses and definitions. So just hoping that will aid in your own review.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for planning staff or the planning board while they're here? Counselor Bacon?
It's just a technical question. So, a minimum parcel area would be 40,000 square feet? What is that in acres?
That's just under an acre.
So then so this isn't large scale then?
I'm trying to think what else is an acre. I'm just trying to think of a point of comparison, what other acre lots there are.
Well, the grass parcel in front of the computing center is an acre. That's pretty large. Yeah, you could fit a decent sized building in a large parking area there.
But I'm thinking of Atlas Copco,
Well,
I'm thinking of the Holiday Inn, I'm thinking of the Barnes and Noble Plaza.
Well, like a downtown block is approximately 108 feet by 400 feet. So you're looking at about 40,000 square feet or an acre there.
Thank you.
Okay, then. It seems that if there's no other questions, we can motion to table items number 6 and 7 as a package.
Motion to table.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thanks, everyone, for your time tonight and helping to explain some of those initial changes that we went through.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
I just, I understand the need for the scrutiny and that the city council needs to really look hard at these things. But I hope that as you go forward, you take into account that the two gentlemen sitting over there, their job every day is to, the man on the left has to bring in and stimulate economic growth within our city. And he feels like this is something that can really help us do that. And the guy sitting on the right is somebody that has to look at all the plans for all those things that come forward and does it to the utmost level, and that those opinions are taken highly in regard as to how this goes down or doesn't go down, because I think they take their jobs very seriously, and I don't think it's at the detriment to the city, and I hope that's kept in mind as these proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you. If you have an open meeting,
Yes. Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Our planning board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Gordon, here's some text and information about the municipal lien. So the ordinance committee has one last item on the agenda, which is item number 5. I'm passing around some information related to item number 5. Feel better, Mimi. So a motion would be in order to take up item number 5 off the agenda.
So moved.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. This is filed by Councilor LeBron Martinez, and I believe I co-sponsored this. That the city council adopt a municipal charges lien ordinance that would allow the city to record a lien against the property for any outstanding charges related to violations of city ordinances, zoning ordinances, state sanitary code, and state building code. Under discussion, Kara, you submitted some documents to us. Do you have a microphone, or are you going to come to the mic? Or you want to sit down with us?
Oh, yeah, there's, and I thought there was this.
Do
two documents you have in front of you are a draft ordinance and then also a letter from the city of Springfield that was from a couple years ago when they first implemented a similar ordinance. And basically what the idea of the ordinance is, it's pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 58, which allows you to adopt an ordinance and to then place as liens on properties certain municipal charges, any municipal charges that are voted by the city council to be included. So the draft you have in front of you is actually modeled after what Springfield has, and it would, the section, and I left the numbers blank because we weren't sure where we'd fit it in, but Section 82 is the taxation section of the ordinances. So under applicability, it outlines that the charges included would be any violations of city ordinances, zoning ordinances, sanitary code, or building code. And to just briefly go through it, it's pretty straightforward. The lien takes effect upon recording a statement of the unpaid charges. These would most likely be in the form of unpaid tickets, and so those all go through the city clerk's office, so it would be the city clerk that would notify department heads of any unpaid tickets, and then the department heads would prepare the list of unpaid charges to be recorded as the lien. Then, if they're still not paid when the assessors prepare the tax warrant, the unpaid charges and any of the associated recording fees will get added into the taxes. So it's basically the same idea of what we're already doing by statute for board and secure or for cleanup, but this would be another tool and another way to collect any unpaid fines or vacant building registration fees that aren't paid. And then the last two sections are just in regards to releasing the liens if it is paid. And just briefly, the letter from Springfield kind of outlines the success that they had when they started doing this back in 2012 fiscal year 2013, the process that they followed. Attorney Pear in my office actually spoke pretty extensively with officials from Springfield. I think he spoke with their treasurer and got a sense of how they've done it, and they've had quite a lot of success. So we have some examples of how they've done it. We would obviously need to, work out some of the kinks and how it would practically work here between various departments. But the first step would be the adoption of the ordinance that you have in front of you.
Councilor Alexander.
Just a quick question. So does this include like regular, like unpaid electric bills, unpaid the sewer bill that we keep talking about? That sort of stuff? Or is it strictly fines?
It's really pretty much.
It says fines and fees, and then it wasn't quite.
Right.
I was not clear.
So we already have the ability to, obviously, to place unpaid utility charges as liens. So when it's really going towards unpaid tickets and likely unpaid vacant building registration fees, which actually in that ordinance are already allowed to be included in such a lien.
If we were to adopt this, and assuming that we already can lien for an unpaid utility bill, that's true. Do we do it?
Yes.
And yet we have $700,000 a year in unpaid sewer bills? Are those all being liened?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
They are?
well, for
Okay.
the most part.
All right.
Yeah.
So, assuming that that's already in place, and this list means whatever the law department decides it means, does that leave any fees, fines, other levies outside of the ability to lien them should it become in severe arrears, whatever the trigger is? Is there anything we still haven't covered?
That still wouldn't be covered. No, I don't. I mean, like I said, we already have the ability to do liens if we spend money in any way in connection with a property. So this is now adding on any of the fines that are issued for the property. mean, the only other thing,
What about
The only other
municipal, like
fees-
traffic tickets, parking tickets? Can we go after those? Can we tie that back to
traffic
the
and-
Part of
property
our
owner?
ordinances.
traffic and parking tickets go against the vehicle. So those are leaned, I guess you could say, in the sense that if you have unpaid parking tickets, they get turned over to the registry of motor vehicles and you can't renew your registration or
Gotcha,
your
okay.
license. And the same, there's a whole separate, like excise tax, that's a whole
Okay.
separate.
So yes, to your best guess, this would
I don't think, and
close
the only
loophole and
other,
cover everything?
the only other source of, money that comes into the city would be unpaid fees for permits, but you just wouldn't get the permit, so that would be different. So I don't think there,
Okay, thank
I
you.
will think about that now that you, but right now I can't think of anything else.
Counselor Bacon?
Thanks. So Kara, I've just looked at this quickly, so I might have missed it, but when would something actually get to this point of becoming a lien? What would be the steps that would occur with the property owner up before that?
Well, technically, it could be a minimum of, you are issued a ticket by the Board of Health, say for having whatever, overflowing dumpster, trash, whatever. That ticket goes unpaid and unappealed, and the ticket is very clear on the procedure of how to appeal it, and then that is then put, recorded as a statement, and then if it's still unpaid, it would be turned over to the assessors to be added to the taxes. The practical reality of this is, though, to record the statement of claim and then to also record a lien, there's obviously fees, and it's $75 a piece for the Registry of Deeds. So I think we would be taking a close look at what those parameters are. I mean, are we going to spend $75 for a $25 ticket? That doesn't make sense, but what we kind of started looking at, and we'll have probably further discussions with Springfield, is that you can add everything up over the course of a year. So if there's
They have 6 tickets, say.
yeah, if there's a property that is continually, is getting a trash ticket or something every month, and then say the city at some point has to go clean up that trash, and you could add that all together into one lien.
Okay,
And then, or if it's a abandoned property and they haven't paid that fee and we've had to, you could put it all together.
so just as a procedural matter, would they get a ticket or they get a notice? And then is there like 1, 2, 3, you get a lien? Or is it 1, you don't pay it and it rises to a big enough number, you get a lien? I'm just looking for
Right, I mean,
notice.
yeah.
I mean, remember the big deal over the dog license?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering
No, I mean,
about notice and warning, this is going to happen if,
right.
how that,
And I'll say, I mean, we kind of left the ordinance a little bit vague in those details because we do need to work them out amongst which departments will do one. But, certainly for the tickets, obviously you get the ticket, and then there would be, I mean, the typical procedure we follow if the city is boarding something up, unless it's an absolute emergency. Well, even in the case of an emergency, certainly if it's not an emergency, before we go out and do it, we would send a letter and say, if you don't do this, by the way, we're gonna do it, and put a lien. Then once it's done, we send a letter with essentially an invoice that says, here, you can pay this, otherwise it's gonna be a lien. And then put the lien on the property.
so I mean, they'd have notice and
They will,
warning and
they will, yeah.
opportunity to correct it.
Right.
So do you think this would most likely be addressing issues with vacant properties? Or what do you think would be the most common things that would come under this?
I think most likely it would be used for those properties that have serious repeat offenders, because, like I was saying, the practical reality is that we're not, and we can't spend the money on the recording, even though technically, you arguably eventually get those fees back, maybe, it's gonna have to be
Yeah.
somewhat selective, and most likely in those cases where they just don't respond to numerous violations.
Right, so that you have something you can do.
Right.
Thank you.
And I also think that the notice that a lien may be placed on your property is also creating an incentive to pay off the smaller violations before you get to that lien
Right,
position.
because it does, and looking at some of the ones where Springfield, and it looked like in some cases they did take kind of a cumulative approach, or I guess in all cases they do add them up at the end of the year, but somebody would have, for these repeat things, several $100s of recording fees right there. So, yeah, there's definitely an incentive for somebody to just pay the tickets or the fines or whatever before you incur those additional charges.
Counselor Alexander and then Counselor Bartley.
Thanks. Just two quick questions. So, just so I'm clear, a lien is basically, this is a question, a lien is basically a admission that we can't collect, right? I mean, now we're saying,
Well, it's
collected
our,
if you try and sell the property, is that?
right, I mean, it's our method of collecting it.
But it doesn't
goes-
drive a collection, it incentivizes people to pay something off, but it doesn't drive an actual collection activity, correct? Until the property flips.
Right, or, I mean, it's added into the taxes and can be collected in the same manner that we collect any other taxes. So arguably, if you're a nonprofit and you don't pay taxes, the lien would then be put onto your property as if it was a tax, and yes, you could foreclose on this lien. Once it goes into becoming a tax, it's treated
Right,
just
but
like
we're not
a
gonna
tax.
foreclose on $500 worth of back taxes on a building. So, okay, so basically it hangs there until the building flips, until and unless, or we foreclose.
Right, if it's sold, it would have to be paid.
So that's,
yeah.
that's fine, just wanted to make sure I understood that. My actual real question is just a mechanics one. Does the city have a way to get a synoptic look at all of if somebody's got a couple of fines from the health department and something from the building department and an unpaid boarding up fee and all these different, can I type in an address somewhere and see that? Or is it run around and ask Damien and ask Brian Beauregard and ask all these different
Yeah.
people?
I don't think there is one way to look at it, and that is something we will have to figure out,
So this would presumably
practically.
drive that
Right.
information consolidation in some
Right.
way, shape, or form.
There's gonna have to be a way.
That's all I have, thank you.
Counselor Bartley?
Thank you. Thanks, Kara, for doing all this. Just one thing, we're not really in the foreclosure business in the municipality, so let me make that clear. So municipalities, the likelihood of a municipality filing foreclosure actions are unlikely. Just in 8296A, so you're saying here,
Oh, I left in some of those numbers, sorry. Yep,
yeah, so you're saying here, if the charge or fee secured is unpaid, when the assessors are preparing the real estate list and warrant, the border officer in charge of the fee or the tax collector shall certify the charge, fee or penalty to the assessors, and the assessor shall add the charge to the next property tax bill. So my question mark is, why do we have to file a lien, or do we have to file a lien to get to that point for the assessors? Is that a legal requirement? So we've got all these unpaid taxes, or unpaid fines out there. Why do we have to, are we required to file a lien first before the assessor can add it to the next property tax bill?
yes,
That's a legal requirement.
yes.
And that's a legal requirement where?
Chapter 40, section 85. It's a statute.
State statute.
Yeah,
Okay, 4085. Is that what you just said?
yep. Sorry, I'm flipping it, 4058. Sorry.
It's not even that late of a night for us. Kara.
Yeah, it was a long
No,
day
that's okay.
yesterday.
Okay, so that's why 4058 is,
Yeah.
4058 says before we can add it to the tax bill, we have to file a lien.
Yep,
Okay,
that subparagraph A that you read is exactly the same language from the statute. And just, that is the exact same procedure that we also currently follow for, liens in connection with boarding and securing or cleaning up a property.
So state law says even though we have all these legally, we legally made all these tickets and we have these uncollected fines, we nevertheless have to file a lien before we can add it to the tax bill.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Second of all, in Part B of that, if the property to which the charge or fee relates is tax exempt, the charge or fee shall be committed as a tax on said property. So, what section of state law allows us to now all of a sudden tax a tax exempt property?
Well, again, it's the same statute,
Same one,
4058.
4058?
And it's the exact same, that's the case in anywhere where you're putting a lien on the property. If it's a gas and electric lien, that, for example, perfect example is the geriatric authority. They're a tax exempt property that we foreclose on because of their unpaid utility lien. So this is the exact same procedure. And this is just, it's really mirroring the same procedures that are already in place for utility liens, board and secure cleaning up for these other types of charges.
Okay, all right, and so the last part, so this is pretty good so far. This abatement thing, okay, is that required under state law to have an abatement step?
That was a provision from Springfield's ordinance that we mirrored the same language.
Okay, because when he says the issuing department head or the city clerk,
I think the city clerk is included because all the tickets are processed through the clerk's office, so the abatement does have to be for just cause, which I would envision perhaps somebody comes and pays it or something after the, well, I guess that wouldn't be an abatement, but, I mean, in the example of a ticket, if you're given a ticket for trash and then you clean up your trash, maybe the Board of Health is gonna say, okay, you cleaned it up, so we'll waive the fine.
I mean, why wouldn't we do it similar to way people appeal parking tickets? Don't they go to you? Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't we have the law department there? Just make it the law department instead of,
I mean, frankly, the
think
department head is
assessors-
gonna know better than, like it was just saying, if it's a Board of Health ticket, they're gonna be the ones that know the property was cleaned up, so they're the issue, the one that's issued the ticket, so I frankly wouldn't wanna have to have that. I mean, it's,
well,
all I would do would be
just a
ask
thought.
I
That's all.
think it's
Just a thought.
properly on the department head or the clerk, the person that originally issued the ticket.
Dave, is your concern that people will do favors for friends, or what's?
well, I mean,
It certainly crossed my mind too.
I mean, there's always a potential for that, but
Is that
there,
why you want the arm's length kind of thing?
well, that's usually the thinking, right? So you want, and plus with the law department, okay, yeah, maybe they won't know the cleanup was done, but somebody will provide evidence that the cleanup was done, and a law department, independent kind of third party can look at that, and they can compare that to the statute and say, or the ordinance, whatever it is, say, okay, we're all set. But I don't know if I'd want to have an elected official overhearing an abatement. I would not feel comfortable at all with that. And then to put this on a department head, so to say, well, it depends what kind of fine you got. You have to go to Brian Fitzgerald in health, or you have to go to Damian Cody in building department, or I mean, Holyoke's got a mishmash of where. To me, this is just ask more. But
I would, if you're not comfortable with that, I would honestly just delete that section.
I like no
Instead of
abatements.
creating some other process.
Maybe when we create an ombuds position, we could have that person deal with it in the future.
And the only thing I would say is that to do the abatement, there's supposed to be a statement in writing of the reason why. So it wouldn't be just somebody saying that, but in all honesty, if that section is a concern, I would just recommend removing it. I mean,
well, I'm just pointing some things. I mean, sorry, for my first time seeing this, so I mean, maybe when I think about it for a little bit, we get some more feedback, but that's just what jumped out at me. Thank you.
Is there anything else then?
What's your pleasure with this tonight?
To me, it seems that there's really not much to this ordinance, except for the few points that we talked about. And I feel like they're simple points that we can hash out. And I'd like to get this before the council for the next meeting. It's our last meeting of the year, so I'd like to
Sure.
get it on the books.
So then I'll offer 2 amendments and wait to see which ones get seconded. So the first one would be that we strike 8298. The second one, I'm not making either one yet. The second one would be that we modify 8298 to make it the law department upon recommendation of a department head, so that the law department doesn't have to worry about whether it got cleaned up. They get a recommendation that says it was cleaned up, and that's why I think you should abate it.
Can I just, so I'm just looking at if I can just add, I'm looking at
A or B, you know?
the statute. It says, a lien under this section may be discharged by filing a certificate from the tax collector that the charges or fees, together with interest and costs, have been paid or legally abated. So I think that's where the abatement provision is
So you have to
coming
have an
from.
abatement provision. So then I would offer an amendment that it be an abatement issued by the law department on the recommendation of a department head or city clerk.
Second.
Yeah, so change, just under discussion, changing that language, so deleting the.
It should just be an insert, so the issuing,
So it would be the law department.
Yep.
Upon recommendation by the issuing department head or city clerk, prior to a charge, blah, 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 may issue an abatement. So it would start with the law department.
yeah,
Yeah, sure.
upon the recommendation of,
Written recommendation. Written recommendation.
written, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so
then-
now it says, the law department, upon the written recommendation of the issuing department head or city clerk. Any other changes?
No, just run with the rest of it exactly as it is.
Okay, so on that amendment, is there a second?
Second.
All in
Third.
favor?
Aye.
So moved. Any other amendments from the body?
Motion to adopt.
I just have to fix the numbering, just so you know, but.
The motion has been made to adopt. Is there a second?
I did second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to pass the municipal charges lien as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thanks, Karen.
And we'll get it from legal counsel in legal form for the meeting.
Yes,
Thank you.
With the numbers all number-fied.
yes.
So it seems like it's.
Yeah.
It's just
exactly.
another,
Second the motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
another option. We may never do any of them, you know, it's. Yes. As they say, yes.